Hi! Today I thought I'd show you how I do sweet potatoes, to grow sweet potatoes. There's lots of different ideas out there. This is the one I found is the easiest and the simplest and the best and the nicest. With any luck, we're hoping to be able to give you a whole year of growing in this series. But right now it's time to start them. So I do grow my own sweet potatoes. So I do have my own, and some of them are a little funky. That's a pretty cool looking one, but most of them are more like this that I grow. You get the big ones, but I really like the tiny ones because they're really good roasted in the oven with some olive oil and salt on them. Very, very tasty. So these are the ones that I had picked out for my seed saving. So I put them in a box upstairs in my cold room that doesn't get heated, but it's just cool. It's not really cold. But I do keep them in a box and I keep them covered and in the dark. So that's the key with sweet potatoes. But it's February 13th and we do have a few little sprouts coming on them. Not a big deal. If I wanted to eat these and I didn't want them for starting my own, I would just nick those off and they'd be fine to eat still. And they would keep fine. As long as you did that, they would store fine. So they're doing just great. And so most of these have some. This one does a little. Yep, I do have a few on them. So anyway, but normally you wouldn't have that. Like if you bought them in the store, or it was a colder year than it is this year, you would have ones that don't have that the start. So, but that's a really nice thing for me this year because I actually know which end the little sprouts are going to come off. So when it comes to sweet potatoes in general, they need, unlike regular potatoes, you're going to actually need them to sprout, and then once they sprout and have about a 4-inch sprout on them, you're going to take that sprout off, stick it in water for a week or so, week to 2 weeks max, and then you're going to plant that either in a pot or directly into the ground come summer. So because of that, we need to start now. So what I found out is that the root end is actually the one that they're sprouting from. So that's new this year that I finally was able to figure that out. These ends, the smaller end here was actually one that was just still growing and it just broke off. But this is actually where the root was in the ground. So you know then, yeah, so all of these, if they didn't have sprouts, you could look at them. And there's like a little nub on them. And it's a little dried out nub, and that's actually that end, the root end. So you know that's where you're going to get most of your sprouts. You will, though, on occasion get them somewhere else on them too. And they are really fun to plant and to grow and watch to grow. They can take a little bit of time, but not as much in my new method. So I'll first show you what I do now. And so this year I will actually cut off a chunk of this. And the rest of it I can either just let air dry and it will dry enough that I could probably store it for a while still, or I could go ahead and cook with that tonight and use it for something. So this has the sprouts. Not sure if you can see the sprouts there, but this is gonna just simply go in there. You're just gonna dig a little hole and plant it in your soil. So there's the little sprouts. That's how simple it is. So I'm just using old mushroom containers that I had. I just rinsed them out and I use those, and I reuse those year after year. I don't worry about them if they get a little dirty with the dirt. It's not a big deal unless there's a disease from something. That's the only time that I would discard or wash thoroughly my containers. And I've been doing this for, well, 20 years now, so yeah, just stick it in there, and then it's just simply water it. And you water it just like you would any household plant. And all the nutrients for it right now are coming from, or mostly coming from the sweet potato itself. But I did do a mix of my compost, just my vegetable compost, and half of my Pro Mix that I use, which is a seed starter all-purpose mix. And I mix half and half roughly, and that seems to do really good. It gives it a little bit of nutrients, but not too much, and it works for all of my seedlings once they're up and I've transplanted. So that's how simple this is. Now another way is, if you want to, you can also just plant the whole sweet potato. So I'm going to take this guy, and you can also just, again, little indent is all you really need. And you push him in, put the dirt back against him, and there's actually little ones just poking out here, but they'll peek out again. I'm not worried about them. They'll come out and grow as they want to. So that's it. Just as long as the soil is around it somewhere, it'll start to root wherever it's touching dirt and getting moisture. So I don't tend to water on the sweet potato, but it's okay. Like, I spilled a little bit on it, but it's not a big deal. But you don't really want it to rot prematurely. So I'm just gonna, for a second, just show you what I used to do, which is a lot more of a pain, and what most recommend you do. And that would be, you would actually take a piece, and again, you'd pick the root end. You cut a chunk off of it. And what they used to tell you to do is fill the glass with water, take toothpicks, poke toothpicks in your sweet potato at an angle. And usually 3 is usually good, I think. And then you'd stick that in there, and you'd fill that with water, and it would eventually root. Well, I found it took a lot longer. I had to start them 1st of January, and the water sometimes went skunky and went really gross. So, and you get a ring around that, and it's just gross. And yeah, and then I did it, and then at one point I did start putting them in just plain in here, just sit them in there with just water. Again, the water got a little skunky, and it was kind of gross. But they did have nice rooting and stuff on them, and they did work, but they did take a lot longer. So this trick of just putting them directly into the dirt, you treat them like a house plant, and just water them when they're dry, or not, just, yeah, keep them moist, and they will grow some really nice plants. So, and I will put this under my light, my grow light, because I do have one, and it is on right now. But if I started these before I was starting any other seeds, I would just put them in my windowsill. Again, they'll take a little bit longer if you do that, but they'll come fine. So if you want to know my next step, well, I will show you, and I will come back and show you another video when they start to grow a little bit, and then I'll show you, probably it'll be April, when the sprouts are big enough that I'll be able to take the sprouts off and put them in water. So I will give you step-by-step instructions as the time goes. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and God bless and happy gardening.